The message arrived at midnight Earth time. Was sitting alone in his office when the communication screen lit up with the golden seal of the Galactic Council. He had been expecting something like this for months. The tension between humanity and the elder races had been growing like a storm cloud. Now the storm had finally arrived. He opened the message and read it slowly. The words were formal and cold. The Galactic Council demanded that humanity send a representative to the Grand Assembly on Orion's threshold. They would answer for crimes against galactic law. The list of crimes was long: unauthorized expansion, illegal weapons development, forbidden contact with quarantined species. Leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He was 53 years old. His hair was turning gray at the temples. 20 years ago, he had been a naval captain, commanding warships at the edge of human space. Now he wore the formal robes of a diplomat, but beneath those robes he was still a soldier. His door opened and Park walked in. She was his chief advisor, a woman of 40 with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. She had already seen the message. Her face was calm but could see the worry in her eyes. "They are not asking us to come," she said quietly. "They are ordering us." "Yes," agreed. "The Council does not make requests, it makes demands." Sat down across from him. "I have been reading the intelligence reports. The Council has been moving warships toward our border for the past 6 months. Slowly, quietly. They think we have not noticed. But we have noticed. We have noticed everything." Stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city of New Seoul stretched toward the horizon. Millions of people lived their lives below, unaware that their future was being decided by beings who lived among distant stars. Humanity had joined the galactic community 80 years ago. In that time, they had built 17 colony worlds. They had made friends and enemies. They had learned that the galaxy was not a welcoming place. The Galactic Council was made up of 12 elder species. They called themselves the Founders. They had ruled the galaxy for longer than human civilization had existed. To them, humanity was like a child who had just learned to walk. Amusing, perhaps, but not important, not worthy of respect. "They want to put us in a cage," said. "Yes," replied. "The intelligence suggests they will impose something called the restriction mandate. All human colonies will be evacuated. Our fleet will be reduced to a handful of patrol ships. We will be confined to Earth and the Moon. Forever. Turn to face her, and if we refuse, then they will use force." The words hung in the air between them. Force. Such a simple word for such a terrible thing. The Council fleet was vast beyond imagination. Thousands of warships built by civilizations that had mastered space travel when humans were still living in caves. "Assemble the delegation," said finally. "We leave for Orion's threshold in 2 days." The next morning met with his team. Was the first to arrive. He was the military, a former Special Forces commander with scars on his hands and ice in his eyes. Did not trust the Council. He did not trust anyone who was not human. "This is a trap," said bluntly. "They have already decided to destroy us. This trial is just a show for the other species. They want to make it look legal." "Probably," admitted. "But we must go anyway. If we refuse, we look guilty. We give them an excuse." Lee arrived next. She was young, only 28, but she was the best communications specialist in the diplomatic corps. She could break any code, intercept any signal, and broadcast any message to any corner of the galaxy. "I have been monitoring Council communications," reported. "They are very confident. They believe we will surrender without a fight. They think we are too young, too weak, too afraid." "Are we?" asked. Smiled slightly. "No, sir, we are none of those things." That evening, received a private communication from Fleet Admiral. She was the commander of all human military forces, a woman of 60 with white hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She did not appear on the official communication channels. Instead, her face flickered on a hidden screen in private quarters. "I know what the council is planning," said without greeting. "This trial is not about justice. It is about control. They fear what we might become." "What do you suggest?" asked. "I suggest you go to Orion's threshold and listen to their lies. Smile. Nod. Let them think they have won." Eyes hardened. "But know this, I have been preparing for this moment for 20 years. When the time comes, humanity will not go quietly." "What have you prepared?" "Things the Council cannot imagine, things they believe are impossible." Leaned closer to the screen. "If you need to walk out of those chambers, if you need to break every treaty and burn every bridge, you do it. I will be ready." Nodded slowly. He understood. This was not just a diplomatic mission. This was the beginning of something much larger, something that would change the galaxy forever. The day of departure came quickly. Stood on the deck of the diplomatic vessel as it lifted off from Earth. Stood beside him. Checked his weapons one last time. Monitored the communication channels, her fingers dancing over her console. The ship rose through the clouds and into the darkness of space. Earth grew smaller behind them, a blue and green jewel hanging in the void. Watched it until it became just another point of light among millions. "Sir," said suddenly, "I have intercepted something." She transferred the data to his personal screen. It was a fragment of a council communication, encrypted but not well enough to stop. Read it and felt his blood turn cold. The council had already voted. The restriction mandate was not a possibility. It was a certainty. The trial was indeed just theater. Humanity had already been judged and found guilty. "They are not even pretending anymore," said softly. "No," agreed, "they are not." The ship entered faster than light travel, and the stars stretched into lines of light. Sat in his chair and stared at the streaking stars. Somewhere ahead, the Galactic Council waited. They expected him to bow. They expected humanity to accept its chains. They were going to be disappointed. The journey to Orion's threshold took 3 days. 3 days of silence and preparation. 3 days of planning for every possible outcome. By the time the station appeared on their screens, knew exactly what he had to do. He would walk into the grand assembly. He would listen to their accusations. And then, when the moment was right, he would show the galaxy what humanity was truly made of. The station grew larger in the viewport, a massive structure of crystal and metal floating in the empty space between stars. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, a monument to power, a throne room for those who believed they ruled the universe. Straightened his robes and prepared to face his judges. The game had begun. The Grand Assembly Hall was the largest room had ever seen. It stretched upward like a cathedral, with walls of living crystal that changed color with the mood of the room. Right now, they glowed a cold blue. Thousands of seats rose in circles around a central platform, filled with representatives from hundreds of species. Some were tall and thin, with skin like polished metal. Others were small and covered in fur. A few existed as clouds of glowing particles, their bodies made of pure energy. Walked down the long aisle toward the central platform, walked on his right, walked on his left, followed behind, her fingers already dancing over a hidden device in her sleeve. Every step echoed in the vast silence. At the far end of the hall, the 12 elders sat on a crescent dais made of black stone. They were the rulers of the galaxy, the founders of the council, the keepers of law and order. They looked down at the human delegation the way a person might look at insects crawling on the ground. High Arbiter sat in the center of the dais. He was a species that had existed for 500,000 years. His body was humanoid but covered in scales the color of burnished gold. His eyes were ancient and cold, filled with the arrogance of someone who had never been challenged. "The human delegation will approach," said. His voice was soft but carried to every corner of the hall. Stepped onto the central platform and bowed slightly. Not too deep, just enough to show basic respect. Beside him did not bow at all, offered a polite nod. kept her eyes on her device. Ambassador of Earth, continued, you stand before the Grand Assembly to answer for crimes committed by your species against the laws of the Galactic Council. Do you understand the charges against you? I understand you have made accusations, replied calmly. I have not yet heard evidence. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Species in the gallery whispered to each other. The elders on the dais exchanged glances. This was not how young species usually behaved. They usually trembled. They usually begged. His eyes narrowed slightly. The evidence will be presented. You will listen. For the next 3 hours, listened. The delegation spoke first. They accused humanity of aggressive expansion, claiming 17 worlds that belonged to no one. They showed star maps and colony records. They used words like invasion and conquest to describe the building of farms and cities. The collective spoke next. They were a hive mind, millions of individuals sharing one consciousness. Their speaker was a pale creature with too many limbs and no visible eyes. They called humanity dangerously unpredictable and presented evidence of human emotions. They seemed to find human anger and love and joy to be threatening. The delegation followed. They were merchants and traders, more interested in profit than politics. But even they had complaints. Humans drove hard bargains. Humans did not accept unfair deals. Humans had the audacity to believe they deserved equal treatment in trade negotiations. Through it all, remained silent. He listened to every accusation. He noted every lie. He watched the faces of the elders and saw no doubt, no uncertainty. They had already made their decision. This trial was exactly what Admiral had warned him it would be. Theater. The most serious accusation came last. An official stepped forward with a data crystal that projected images into the air above the assembly. The human government has made contact with he announced, a species that was quarantined by Council Decree 400 years ago. This is a violation of the highest order. They are dangerous. They are unstable. They were isolated for the protection of all. The images showed human ships meeting vessels in deep space. They showed ambassadors shaking hands with beings that looked almost human but not quite. They showed trade goods being exchanged and treaties being signed. Humanity knew the law, the official continued. They broke it anyway. This proves they cannot be trusted. This proves they must be controlled. Finally spoke, may I respond? Waved his hand dismissively. The human delegation will have opportunity to accept the council's terms. There is nothing to debate. Nothing to debate, his voice hardened. You accuse us of crimes but deny us the right to speak. Your guilt is evident. Your defense is irrelevant. In the gallery, caught movement from the corner of her eye. A figure in dark robes sat among the observers, watching the proceedings with unusual intensity. It was a female with silver hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. She met his gaze and nodded slightly. There was something in that nod, a message, a promise. Leaned close to and whispered in his ear, listened without changing his expression. Then he raised his voice so the entire assembly could hear. The human delegation requests a recess to consider the council's terms. Smiled. It was the smile of a predator who had cornered its prey. The council grants a recess of 6 hours. When you return, you will accept the restriction mandate. Your colonies will be evacuated. Your fleet will be dismantled. Your species will be confined to your home system. This is not negotiable. Bowed again, slightly deeper this time. We will return in 6 hours. He turned and walked toward the exit. His team followed. Behind them, the assembly broke into conversation. Species that had watched in silence now discussed what they had seen. Most expected humanity to surrender. A few wondered if the humans might do something unexpected. They had no idea. Outside the assembly hall, the human delegation moved quickly through the corridors of Orion's threshold. They did not speak until they reached their assigned quarters. a small suite of rooms with walls that probably contained listening devices. Swept the rooms with her scanner and found 17 different bugs. She disabled them all with a single pulse from her device. The walls went silent. "We have 6 hours," said. "Use them well." Was already working on her personal terminal. The observer passed me a data package during the session. I do not know how she did it without anyone seeing, but it is on my device now. "Can you open it?" "Can." The young communications specialist took the device and began working. Her fingers moved faster than the eye could follow. Encryption codes fell away one by one. Firewalls crumbled. Within minutes, the data package was open. What it contained changed everything. Read the files first. Her face went pale. She read them again to make sure she understood. Then she handed the device to. He read in silence. When he finished, his hands were shaking. "They lied," he said softly. "They have been lying for 12,000 years." The data package contained records from before the Council existed. It contained evidence of a species called a civilization that had risen to challenge the elder races. They had been powerful and proud. They had refused to bow to the founders. They had demanded equality. So the founders had destroyed them. Every world, every ship, every man, woman, and child, they were erased from existence. Their planets were sterilized. Their technology was destroyed. Their very name was removed from galactic records. And the place where the genocide happened, the place where the evidence was buried. The Vila Corridor, the same region humanity was accused of illegally entering. This is why they quarantined realized. They found the evidence. They found the truth. The Council silenced them to protect their secret. His jaw tightened. They are not afraid of what we have done. They are afraid we will find out what they did. Stood slowly. His eyes were cold now. The eyes of a man who had just discovered that everything he had been told was a lie. "Contact Admiral," he said. "Tell her the situation has changed. Tell her to prepare for the worst." Nodded and began working on a secure communication channel. Walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the bones of the civilization lay scattered in the darkness. An entire species, murdered and forgotten, and the killers still sat on their thrones, judging others for far lesser crimes. "We are not going to accept their terms," said quietly. "No," agreed, "we are not. When we go back into that chamber, we are going to show them what happens when you try to cage humanity." The 6 hours began to count down, and somewhere in the depths of the station, the observer smiled. The truth was finally going to be told. The secure communication link to Admiral took 20 minutes to establish. 20 minutes of routing the signal through hidden relays, bouncing it off dead satellites, and wrapping it in layers of encryption that even the Council's best code breakers could not penetrate. When Space finally appeared on the screen, she looked as if she had not slept in days. Dark circles hung under her eyes. Her white hair was pulled back in a tight knot. Behind her, could see the command center of the human flagship, officers moving quietly between stations. "I received your preliminary report," said without greeting. "The evidence, the genocide, all of it." "Then you understand why we cannot accept their terms," replied. "I understood that before you left Earth." Leaned forward. "What I need to know is what you plan to do in 4 hours when that recess ends." Had spent the last 2 hours thinking about exactly that question. He had discussed it with. They had argued and debated and finally reached a conclusion that none of them liked but all of them accepted. "We are going to expose them," said. "We are going to broadcast the evidence to every species in the galaxy. We are going to show everyone what the Council really is." Nodded slowly, and then we are going to walk out. We are going to void every treaty humanity has ever signed with Council species. We are going to make it clear that we will not be controlled, contained, or confined. You understand what that means? War. Maybe. Eyes were hard but not cold. There was something else there. Pride, perhaps, or hope. Maybe something else. The council is not as strong as they pretend to be. Their alliance is held together by fear and lies. If those lies are exposed, if that fear becomes doubt, the whole structure could collapse. Or they could unite against us and destroy humanity completely. That is also possible, smiled grimly. But I have been preparing for this moment for a long time. The Council thinks they know our capabilities. They are wrong. They think they know our technology. They are wrong about that too. When you walk out of that chamber, I will be ready to protect our people. What have you built, Admiral? Things that will change everything. Glanced at something off-screen. Protocol Sunrise. That is all I can tell you on this channel. When the time comes, you will see. The communication ended. Sat in silence for a long moment, thinking about Protocol Sunrise and what it might mean. Then he turned to his team. I need you to prepare a broadcast. When I give the signal, you will transmit the evidence to every communication network in the galaxy. Every ship, every station, every planet that can receive a signal will see the truth. I can do that, said, but the Council will try to block it. Can they succeed? Smiled. It was a dangerous smile. No, I have been planning for something like this since I joined the diplomatic corps. I have in communication systems they do not even know exist. Once I start the broadcast, nothing can stop it. Spoke next. What about the other species in the assembly? Many of them have no love for the Council, but they are afraid. They have seen what happens to those who resist. They will have to make a choice, replied. Stand with the Council and its lies or stand with those who tell the truth. We cannot make that choice for them. Some will choose wrong. Yes, some will, but some will choose right, and that might be enough. Had been silent through most of the conversation. Now he spoke, his voice low and serious. There is something you should know, Ambassador. I did not want to mention it until I was certain, but I am certain now. What is it? The Council has a strike force hidden behind the fourth moon of this system. 12 heavy cruisers, 40 support vessels, and at least 200 fighters. They are running silent, no active sensors, no communications. They think we cannot see them. But you can see them. I have been tracking them since we arrived. They are not here for defense. They are here for us. If we walk out of that chamber, they will try to destroy our ship before we can leave the system. A cold feeling settled in stomach. He had expected the Council to be prepared for resistance, but not like this. Not a hidden fleet waiting to destroy them the moment they showed defiance. Can we escape? He asked. Considered the question. Maybe. Our ship is faster than anything they have, but we would have to reach open space first. It would be close. Then we make sure they have bigger problems to worry about. Such as the truth spreading across the galaxy while they try to catch us. Such as every species they have ever lied to suddenly asking questions. Such as their entire alliance beginning to crumble around them. There was a knock at the door. Everyone tensed. His hand moved toward his weapon, held up a hand to stop him, and walked to the door himself. The observer stood in the corridor. Her silver hair gleamed in the station's artificial light. Her eyes were calm and knowing. May I come in? She asked. Stepped aside and let her enter. Quickly scanned her for weapons or recording devices and found nothing. My name is, the said. I have been waiting a very long time for this day. You gave us the evidence about this, said. Why? Because the Council murdered my people too. Not physically. They let us live. But they took everything else. Our worlds, our ships, our place in the galaxy. They locked us away and told everyone we were dangerous. They turned us into monsters in the minds of the young races. All because we found the truth and refused to forget it. Walked to the window and looked out at the stars. They have been waiting for 400 years. Waiting for someone brave enough to stand against the Council. Waiting for someone foolish enough to tell the truth. When humanity made contact with us, when you listened to our story without fear, we knew you were the ones we had been waiting for. You have been helping us, realized. The intelligence, the technology breakthroughs, the warnings about council movements, that was all you. Some of it, humans are clever enough on their own. We just helped you along, turned back to face them. But now comes the hard part. Now you must choose whether to fight or surrender. We have already chosen, said. I know, I could see it in your eyes the moment you walked into the assembly hall. You came here ready for war, smiled. Good. The galaxy needs war right now. It needs fire to burn away the old lies. It needs pain to wake people from their sleep. What will the do when we walk out? We will speak. For the first time in 400 years, we will tell our story to everyone who will listen. We will confirm the truth about we will add our voice to yours. Eyes hardened. And if the Council sends their ships against humanity, they will find that they have not been idle during our quarantine. We have been building too. The recess was nearly over. Looked at his team one last time, who had always believed in doing what was right even when it was dangerous, who had never trusted the Council and had been proven right, who held the power to change the galaxy in her fingers. And now, a representative of a species that had suffered in silence for centuries, finally ready to speak. It is time, said. They walked back toward the assembly hall together. The corridors were full of species moving in the same direction, eager to witness humanity's surrender. They looked at the human delegation with pity or contempt or simple curiosity. None of them knew what was about to happen. At the entrance to the hall, paused and looked at, Are you ready? I am ready, she replied. Then let us begin. He walked through the doors, into the vast chamber where the 12 elders waited on their thrones of black stone. High Arbiter looked down at him with the satisfied smile of a hunter who had finally cornered his prey. Smiled back. And the smile was not that of prey at all. The Grand Assembly fell silent as Ambassador walked down the central aisle. Every eye in the chamber followed him. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species watched the human delegation approach the platform where the 12 elders waited. The crystal walls glowed a deep gold now, reflecting the expectation that filled the room. Everyone knew what was about to happen. Humanity would accept the restriction mandate. They would bow. They would surrender. This was how it always ended for young species who challenged the Council. High Arbiter rose from his throne with ceremonial gravity. In his hands, he held a golden scroll, the official document of the restriction mandate. His scales caught the light as he moved, making him seem to glow with power and authority. Ambassador of Earth announced, The recess has ended. The time has come to accept the judgment of the Galactic Council. Your species will be confined to your home system. Your colonies will be evacuated within 1 standard year. Your military fleet will be reduced to 20 vessels, suitable only for system defense. You will have no voice in galactic affairs until such time as the Council deems you mature enough to participate. Paused, clearly expecting to kneel or at least bow deeply. The golden scroll hung between them like a chain waiting to be fastened around humanity's throat. Did not kneel. He did not bow. He simply stood there, looking up at the High Arbiter with an expression that gave nothing away. Have you nothing to say? Asked, a hint of irritation creeping into his voice. I have much to say, replied calmly. I wonder if the Council will let me speak. You may offer words of acceptance, nothing more. Nodded slowly. Then he turned his back on and faced the assembly. 43 species have signed treaties with humanity, he began. His voice was clear and strong, carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. Trade agreements, non-aggression pacts, cultural exchanges, scientific cooperation. Every single one of these treaties was negotiated in good faith. We honored them. We kept our promises. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. This was not a speech of acceptance. This was something else entirely. The Council speaks of law and order, continued. They speak of protecting the galaxy from dangerous species. They speak of wisdom and experience and ancient traditions. He paused. But I wonder what they do not speak of. Took a step forward, his face darkening. Ambassador, you will accept the mandate or face the consequences. Consequences, turned back to face him. Let us talk about consequences, High Arbiter. Let us talk about what happens to species that challenge the Council. Let us talk about The word fell into the assembly like a stone dropped into still water. Silence spread outward in waves. On the dais, the 12 elders went rigid. Several of them gripped the arms of their thrones so hard their knuckles turned white. His eyes widened for just a moment before he controlled his expression. That name means nothing. There is no species called the. Not anymore. His voice was cold now, because you murdered them. Chaos erupted in the gallery. Species shouted questions and demands. Representatives stood up from their seats. Security forces moved toward the central platform but stopped when they saw that had made no aggressive move. You lie, snarled. They are a myth, a story told by malcontents and troublemakers. Are they? Looked over his shoulder and nodded too. Her fingers moved across her hidden device. Across the galaxy, communication systems lit up. Every ship received the signal. Every station received the data. Every planet with a receiver saw the evidence flood across their screens. The truth about the records of the genocide, the star maps showing where it happened, the communication logs between the founders as they planned the murder of an entire civilization. Everything that had saved for 400 years, now spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. In the assembly hall, holographic displays activated without permission. The evidence played on every screen, in every language, impossible to ignore. Species watched in horror as they learned that the council they had trusted, the council they had feared, had committed the ultimate crime. 12,000 years ago, said over the noise, they challenged your authority, they demanded equality. They refused to bow, so you destroyed them. You burned their worlds. You killed billions of innocent beings. And then you erased them from history. Was trembling now, but not with fear, with rage. This is evidence. This is a trick by they who have always been enemies of order and peace. They found the truth, shot back. That was their only crime. They discovered what you did and they refused to stay silent, so you locked them away too. You told the galaxy they were dangerous, that they were unstable, that they should be feared, all to protect your secret. From the gallery, rose to her feet. Her voice rang out across the chaos. For 400 years my people have been silenced. For 400 years we have waited for this moment. Everything the human ambassador says is true. We have the original records. We have the evidence. The council are murderers. The assembly descended into madness. Representatives from dozens of species were shouting now, demanding explanations, demanding answers. Some were calling for calm. Others were calling for the humans to be arrested. The crystal walls had turned a violent red, reflecting the anger that filled the chamber. Reached into his robes and a crystalline data chip. It was the ceremonial archive of every treaty humanity had signed with galactic powers, a symbol of their place in the galactic community, a sign of their acceptance of council authority. He held it up so everyone could see. The council speaks of law and order, he said, but this body has shown us what its law truly means. It means obedience. It means silence. It means the powerful decide who may rise and who must kneel. He met's eyes directly. Humanity will not kneel. And then he threw the data chip to the floor. The crystal shattered on the ancient marble, sending fragments scattering in every direction. Each piece caught the red light of the walls, glittering like drops of blood. Every treaty humanity has signed with council species is hereby void, declared. Every agreement, every pact, every promise. We release ourselves from all obligations. We reject your authority. We reject your judgment. We reject your lies. Finally found his voice. You condemn your species to destruction. The Council fleet will. Will what? Interrupted. Will murder us like you murdered will erase us from history, will burn our worlds and kill our children. He shook his head. You may try, but you will find that humanity is not so easy to destroy. He turned and began walking toward the exit, fell into step beside him, followed, his hand resting openly on his weapon now, continued broadcasting, making sure every corner of the galaxy received the truth. Behind them, High Arbiter screamed orders. Security forces rushed toward the human delegation. Representatives blocked the aisles, some trying to stop the humans, others trying to help them. Moved like water, deflecting grabbing hands, creating a path through the chaos. His training had prepared him for exactly this moment. He did not hurt anyone. There was no need. He simply made it impossible for anyone to stop them. At the doors of the assembly hall, paused and looked back one last time. The chamber was in complete disarray. The 12 elders were shouting at each other. Species that had been allies were suddenly questioning everything they had believed. This is not the end, said, his voice somehow carrying over all the noise. This is the beginning. The galaxy has been sleeping for too long, dreaming dreams that the Council created for them. It is time to wake up. Then he walked through the doors and did not look back again. The corridors of Orion's threshold were crowded with panicking beings. Alarms had begun to sound. Security teams were mobilizing, but no one tried to stop the human delegation. They were too shocked, too confused, too overwhelmed by what they had just witnessed. Outside the station, the hidden Council fleet was powering up its weapons. They had been waiting for the signal to strike, but the signal never came. No one in the assembly hall was thinking about military action anymore. They were too busy dealing with the collapse of everything they had believed to be true. The human diplomatic vessel launched from its docking bay and accelerated toward open space. Behind them, Orion's threshold grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light among the stars. Sat in the command chair and watched the stars streak past as they entered faster than light travel. It is done, said quietly. No, replied, it has just begun. Somewhere in the darkness of space, humanity's real fleet was waiting. Protocol Sunrise was ready, and the galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy burned with the fire of truth. Within hours of broadcast, the evidence of the genocide had reached every corner of known space. Species that had trusted the Council for now stared at their screens in horror. Governments that had followed Council orders without question suddenly found themselves facing angry populations demanding answers. The lies that had held the galaxy together for 12,000 years were crumbling like sand castles in a rising tide. On Earth, Admiral stood in the command center of humanity's true military headquarters, deep beneath the surface of the moon. Around her, hundreds of officers monitored screens that showed the movements of every ship in the galaxy. The Council fleet is breaking formation, one officer reported. The ships are withdrawing. They have declared neutral status. Only the remain fully committed. Nodded, she had expected this. The Council's alliance had always been built on fear and shared secrets. Now that the secrets were exposed, the fear was turning against the Council itself. What about the strike force near Orion's threshold? She asked. Still holding position, but they are not pursuing the diplomatic vessel. They appear to be waiting for orders that are not coming. Allowed herself a small smile. The chaos in the assembly hall was serving its purpose. While the elders argued and accused each other, humanity's delegation was escaping. Contact Ambassador, she ordered. Tell him to proceed to the rendezvous point and activate Protocol Sunrise. Across human space, things began to happen that the Council had believed impossible. Defense platforms that had been hidden in asteroid fields powered up and revealed themselves. Ships that had been disguised as cargo freighters dropped their false hulls and showed their true forms, sleek warships armed with weapons the Council had never seen. Communication arrays that the Council thought were simple relay stations activated their true functions, creating a network that could coordinate millions of vessels across thousands of light years. For 20 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment. They had hidden their true capabilities, showing the galaxy only what they wanted the galaxy to see. The Council had believed humans were children playing with primitive toys. They had been wrong. The diplomatic vessel carrying and his team emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of human space. What they saw made gasp out loud. A fleet was waiting for them. Not the small patrol force that the Council knew about, but an armada of over 3,000 warships, arranged in perfect formation. At the center of the formation floated humanity's flagship, a vessel so large it made the Council's biggest ships look like toys. "Admiral sends her regards," the communications officer reported. "She says welcome to Protocol Sunrise." Stared at the fleet in amazement. He had known that was preparing something, but he had never imagined anything like this. "How?" he whispered. 20 years of work," replied. There was pride in his voice. Hidden shipyards in the outer system, resources diverted from civilian projects, technology developed in secret laboratories that the Council never knew existed. "We have been building this fleet since the day humanity joined the galactic community." "We never trusted them," added softly. "Not really. We always knew this day might come." Across the galaxy, the truth was spreading faster than anyone could contain it. 16 species declared their support for humanity within the first day. They were mostly younger races, species that had felt the weight of Council oppression for centuries. They broke their long silence and began broadcasting their own story, adding their voices to the chorus of accusation against the elders. They demanded immediate military action against humanity. High Arbiter screamed for the Council fleet to attack before it was too late, but the fleet commanders hesitated. Their crews had seen the evidence too. Many of them were questioning everything they had been taught to believe. "The Council alliance is fracturing," reported from her station on the diplomatic vessel. "I am monitoring their communications. The elders are blaming each other for the leak. They are threatening to act alone. The other species are withdrawing their ships." "Good," said, "let them tear themselves apart." But they were not willing to wait. On the third day after the walkout, a battle group of 50 ships crossed into human space without Council authorization. They headed straight for the nearest human colony, a mining world called New Haven with a population of 2 million people. Admiral received the report in her command center. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes were cold. "They have always been the most aggressive of the elders," she said. "They believe they can intimidate us with a show of force. Let us show them how wrong they are." She gave the order, and humanity's response was swift and overwhelming. They expected to face a handful of patrol ships. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by 200 human warships that seemed to appear from nowhere. Human technology allowed their vessels to travel through space in ways the Council had believed impossible. One moment the space around the fleet was empty. The next moment, it was full of weapons pointed at their hulls. "This is Admiral of the Human Defense Force," a voice announced over all communication channels. "You have entered human territory without permission. You will withdraw immediately or be destroyed. You have 30 seconds to comply." The commander was an old warrior who had fought in a dozen campaigns. He had never lost a battle. He had never retreated. He retreated now. The ships turned and fled at maximum speed. Behind them, the human fleet did not pursue. There was no need. The message had been delivered. Humanity could not be bullied. News of the encounter spread quickly. Species that had been considering supporting the Council suddenly found reasons to remain neutral. Species that had been neutral began considering supporting humanity. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and everyone could feel it. On Earth, celebrations filled the streets. Humans who had spent their lives feeling small and weak in a galaxy of ancient powers suddenly realized that they were stronger than they had known. The fear that had hung over humanity since first contact began to fade, replaced by something new. Pride, but knew that the battle was far from over. "They will not forget this humiliation," he told his team as they watched the news from Earth. "They will demand revenge, and there are other elder species who will support them. The Council may be fractured, but it is not destroyed." "Then we destroy it completely," said. No, shook his head. "That is not what we want. We do not want to become the new tyrants of the galaxy. We want something better." "What do you want?" asked. Thought about the question for a long moment before answering. "I want a galaxy where no species is silenced because they tell the truth. I want a galaxy where the young are not crushed by the old. I want a galaxy where equality is real, not just a word. I want to build something new from the ruins of the Council's lies." "That is a big dream," said. "Yes, but it is worth fighting for." In the weeks that followed, the galaxy continued to transform. 5 of the 12 elders were deposed by their own populations, replaced by new leaders who promised reform and transparency. They erupted in civil unrest as younger generations demanded accountability for the crimes of the past. And humanity was not alone. The Stellar Compact began to take shape. It was an idea that had been thinking about since he first read the evidence of the genocide. A new alliance built on principles the Council had never embraced. Equal representation for all species, regardless of age or power. Transparent governance. No species quarantined, no histories erased, no voices silenced. 23 species signed the founding charter in the first month. As watched the signatures accumulate, he felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading the way.